There is a thought moving quietly within you, so familiar that you no longer question it. It does not shout, it does not argue. It simply sits there, repeating itself, shaping every decision, every expectation, every outcome. You may believe your life is blocked by circumstances, by people, by lack of opportunity, but the true obstruction is far subtler. It is a silent assumption you carry about who you are and what is possible for you. You wake up each day thinking you are reacting to the world, but in truth, the world is reacting to you. Not to your spoken words, not to your wishes, but to your deepest, most habitual belief. The thought that blocks your life is not, "I can't," spoken out loud. It is the quiet feeling of, "This is just how things are for me." That feeling becomes law. You may say you want change, yet inwardly you expect repetition. You imagine a better future, yet you feel loyalty to the past. And what you feel to be true is what continues to express itself. The mind accepts what you assume, not what you hope. Hope looks forward, assumption lives now. Life responds only to what you accept as real in the present. Observe how often you internally rehearse disappointment before anything has gone wrong. How often you lower your expectations to protect yourself. How often you tell yourself that others are lucky, gifted, chosen, while you are ordinary, delayed, or unseen. These are not harmless thoughts. They are commands. The silent thought says, "This is my place," and life obeys. You do not struggle because you lack effort. You struggle because you are faithful to an identity that no longer serves you. The world you see is a mirror of the self you are being. Change the self, and the mirror must change. There is no other way. The moment you assume that something is difficult for you, it becomes difficult. The moment you assume you are always behind, you will always find evidence to confirm it. The mind is creative, but it is also obedient. It will build a life that matches your inner story exactly. What blocks you is not fear alone, but familiarity. You are more comfortable with the known pain than with the unknown freedom. So you unconsciously return to the same thoughts, the same emotional reactions, the same inner conversations. And life, having no choice, recreates the same scenes. Every change begins the instant you stop identifying with that silent thought, not by fighting it, but by replacing it. You do not ask permission from the world to think differently. You simply assume a new truth and dwell in it. When you feel yourself to be the person who already has, already is, already lives differently, the outer world rearranges to reflect that inner decision. The power is not in effort, struggle, or waiting for signs. The power is in acceptance. When you accept a new idea of yourself, when you feel it to be natural, the old block dissolves without force. The silent thought that once limited you loses its authority the moment you stop believing it. Your life is not waiting to change someday. It is changing every moment according to what you quietly accept as true right now. Most people believe their thoughts are harmless because they are invisible. They assume that only action creates results, yet every action is born from an inner agreement with a certain idea of self. Before you speak, before you move, before you decide, you have already accepted something as true. That acceptance is the real cause. Everything else follows. Notice how the mind constantly whispers definitions about you. It tells you what you deserve, what you can expect, what usually happens to someone like you. These whispers are not loud enough to disturb you, yet they are powerful enough to rule you. You may not even recognize them as thoughts. They feel more like facts. And that is precisely why they govern your life. You may think, "I am realistic," when in truth you are being loyal to an old assumption. Reality is not something you observe, it is something you project. The so-called facts of your life are the after effects of beliefs you once accepted without question. The silent thought blocking you is the belief that reality exists independent of you, that you must adapt to it rather than shape it. When you accept that belief, you live in reaction. You wait for permission. You wait for proof. You wait for circumstances to improve before you allow yourself to feel confident, secure, or fulfilled. And as long as you wait, nothing changes, because life mirrors your waiting. The inner world is always one step ahead of the outer world. What you experience today was decided long before, in moments you barely remember, when you silently agreed with a limitation. Perhaps you agreed that success is difficult. Perhaps you agreed that love does not last. Perhaps you agreed that life requires struggle. Once agreed upon, these ideas begin to express themselves automatically. You do not need to constantly think about a belief for it to operate. Just as gravity works whether you acknowledge it or not, your assumptions work whether you focus on them or not. The most powerful beliefs are the ones you no longer notice. They have become part of your identity. Ask yourself who you are being when no one is watching. Not what you say you want, but what you expect. Expectation is the clearest confession of belief. If you expect disappointment, delay, rejection, or struggle, then that expectation is your silent prayer. And life answers prayers without judgment. You might wonder why affirmations sometimes fail, why positive thinking feels forced, why change seems temporary. It is because words spoken without inner acceptance carry no authority. The mind does not respond to repetition. It responds to conviction. You cannot impress the subconscious by shouting. You persuade it by feeling. The silent thought blocking you often hides behind logic. It says, "Be careful. Don't get your hopes up." This is just how things work. It disguises itself as wisdom, but it is only habit. Habit is powerful because it feels safe. The known, even if painful, feels safer than the unknown, even if freeing. So you repeat old emotional reactions. You react the same way to criticism. You anticipate the same outcomes. You prepare for loss before gain has even appeared. These emotional patterns reinforce the silent thought and keep it alive. Emotion is belief in motion. Every time you feel something deeply, you are teaching the mind what is real. If you repeatedly feel anxious about money, the mind learns that lack is normal. If you repeatedly feel unworthy in relationships, the mind learns that love must be earned or withheld. The feeling becomes the instruction. The change you seek does not begin with fixing the outer situation. It begins with altering the feeling of self. When the feeling changes, the situation has no choice but to follow. The outer world is not independent, it is responsive. This is why effort alone often leads to exhaustion. You can work endlessly while inwardly believing you are struggling, and life will continue to feel like a struggle. You can chase opportunities while inwardly believing they are scarce, and they will remain scarce. The inner belief sets the tone. Freedom begins the moment you realize that you are not bound to your current self-concept. You are not required to be who you have been. The past has no authority unless you grant it authority. Memory itself is selective, shaped by belief. Change the belief, and even the meaning of your past begins to shift. The silent thought blocking you might be a simple sentence you once accepted. "I am not good enough. I always mess things up. Nothing works out for me." You may not repeat it consciously, but you live as if it were true. You make choices consistent with it. You interpret events through it. To dissolve it, you do not argue with it. You do not analyze it endlessly. You simply stop feeding it emotional energy. You replace it with a new assumption and feel that assumption as natural. The mind follows what feels familiar, so you must make the new idea familiar through feeling. Feeling is the secret language of creation. What you feel to be true hardens into fact. When you feel successful, opportunities appear. When you feel valued, respect follows. When you feel secure, stability manifests. The feeling precedes the evidence. This does not mean you ignore reality, it means you redefine it. Reality is always in motion, responding to inner direction. The moment you shift your inner direction, reality begins to rearrange itself in ways you could not predict logically. You are always imagining, even when you believe you are not. You imagine failure by anticipating it. You imagine rejection by fearing it. You imagine delay by expecting it. These imaginal acts are creative, whether conscious or unconscious. The silent thought blocking you is simply an imaginal habit you have practiced for a long time. And anything practiced can be unpracticed. You do not need time, you need decision. The decision to occupy a different state of mind. When you assume a new identity internally, you may notice discomfort at first. This discomfort is not a sign of error, it is a sign of change. The old self resists displacement. It has ruled for a long time and does not step aside quietly, but persistence in the new assumption dissolves resistance. You are not here to become something new. You are here to remember something deeper. The power that shaped your current life is the same power that will reshape it. Nothing external must be added. Nothing external must be removed. Only your inner agreement must change. Watch your inner conversations. They reveal your true beliefs. The way you speak to yourself about others, about events, about the future exposes the silent thought at work. Change the conversation, and you change the direction of your life. When you internally speak from a place of fulfillment rather than longing, from certainty rather than doubt, from calm rather than anxiety, you are instructing life how to treat you. Life is always listening not to your words, but to your state. There is no punishment in life, only reflection. What you see is what you have been assuming. This realization is not meant to blame you, but to free you. If you created it unconsciously, you can recreate it consciously. You are never blocked by lack of ability, lack of intelligence, or lack of opportunity. You are blocked only by a state of consciousness that says, "This is who I am." The moment you release that definition, the block dissolves. You do not need to wait for confidence to act. You act from confidence by assuming it first. Confidence is not built by success. Success is built by confidence. The inner state leads, the outer result follows. When you begin to feel yourself as the person you wish to be, you will notice subtle changes. People respond differently. Opportunities arise unexpectedly. Circumstances soften. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. The silent thought loses power when you stop identifying with it. It may still appear, but it no longer defines you. Thoughts only rule when you believe they are you. When you see them as habits rather than truths, their grip weakens. Your life is not a struggle against the world. It is a dialogue with your own assumptions. Speak differently inwardly, and the dialogue changes outwardly. You are not here to force reality into submission. You are here to align with a higher idea of yourself and allow reality to conform. Alignment requires acceptance, not effort. Every moment offers a choice to think from the old state or from the new. The choice may seem small, but its effects are immense. Persist in the new, and it becomes natural. When it becomes natural, it becomes visible. Nothing is permanently fixed. What appears solid is only habit made visible. Change the habit, and the solidity dissolves. The silent thought that once blocked your life becomes irrelevant, powerless, forgotten. And as that thought fades, life begins to move again, not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed yourself to assume something better as true. When you begin to understand this, you stop asking why things happen to you and start noticing how they unfolded from you. This shift is subtle but profound. It moves you from the position of a victim of circumstance to the position of an originator. Not in a loud or dramatic way, but in a quiet inner knowing that what you consent to inwardly becomes your experience outwardly. You have been taught to control behavior, to discipline actions, to manage results. Very few are taught to observe the state of consciousness from which those actions arise. Yet two people can take the same action and receive entirely different outcomes, not because the action was different, but because the inner state was different. One acts from confidence, the other from fear. One expects reward, the other expects struggle. Life responds accordingly. The silent thought that blocks you often expresses itself as resignation. It is the inner shrug that says, "This is just how it goes." That resignation is more powerful than anger, more binding than doubt, because it closes the door to imagination. It convinces you that change is theoretical, possible for others, but unrealistic for you. Once imagination is dismissed, life becomes mechanical. Days repeat. Patterns recycle. You begin to measure time not by growth, but by endurance. And yet imagination is the very faculty through which all change enters. To deny it is to deny movement itself. You imagine constantly, but not deliberately. You imagine arguments that haven't happened. You imagine failures before attempts. You imagine explanations for why things won't work. These imaginal acts feel practical, even responsible, but they are creative in the most limiting way. Imagination does not respond to your opinions about it. It responds to use. Whatever you consistently imagine with feeling, you experience. The world you call physical is imagination made solid through repetition and belief. The reason the silent thought is so effective is because it feels personal. You say, "This is just me," without realizing that me is a concept you have been rehearsing. Identity is not fixed, it is assumed. And what is assumed can be replaced. The moment you loosen your grip on the old identity, you may feel uncertain. The mind prefers a painful certainty to an unfamiliar freedom. That is why many people unconsciously return to old problems just to feel grounded again. They mistake familiarity for safety. But safety does not come from repeating the past. It comes from trusting the power that created the past. The same inner force that expressed limitation can express expansion the moment you allow it. You are not required to convince anyone else of your new assumption. The work is internal. The outer world will be convinced automatically through reflection. Explanation is unnecessary when embodiment is present. When you internally embody a new state, you do not force confidence, you feel calm. You do not chase validation, you feel complete. You do not demand change, you expect it. Expectation is quiet, not desperate. It carries authority. The silent thought blocking you often sounds reasonable because it has been reinforced by evidence. But evidence follows belief, not the other way around. The past proves nothing about the future except what you continue to assume. If you base your assumptions on past results, you lock yourself into repetition. If you base your assumptions on inner decision, you open the door to transformation. The future is not an extension of the past unless you insist on it. You may notice that when you briefly feel free, confident, or hopeful, life seems lighter. Things flow. Conversations are easier. Ideas come naturally. This is not coincidence. It is alignment. In those moments, the silent thought loosens its grip. Your task is not to chase those moments, but to stabilize them. Stability comes from repeated inner choice. Each time the old thought appears, and you choose not to dwell in it, you weaken it. Each time you feel yourself to be something greater, you strengthen the new state. Do not measure progress by immediate results. Results lag behind assumption. Measure progress by how naturally you think, feel, and respond. When the new state feels ordinary, manifestation is inevitable. The mind does not need complex instructions. It needs consistency. It needs a clear sense of identity. When you consistently feel yourself to be valued, capable, and supported, the mind reorganizes perception to confirm it. What you call luck is often the visible effect of an invisible assumption. Those who seem fortunate usually expect things to work out. They do not demand perfection. They assume favor. That assumption shapes their experience. You may believe that life is random, but randomness dissolves under observation. Patterns reveal belief. The same emotional themes repeat until the belief beneath them is addressed. Change the belief, and the pattern loses its foundation. The silent thought blocking you might be that life is hard, that success requires sacrifice, that joy must be earned through suffering. These ideas are inherited, absorbed, normalized. They feel collective, but they operate individually. You are not obligated to carry inherited beliefs. You are not required to live out someone else's assumptions. Consciousness is not bound by tradition unless you bind it. When you release the belief that struggle is necessary, effort transforms. Action becomes inspired rather than forced. You still act, but without resistance. You move because you feel aligned, not because you feel pressured. The difference between force and flow is inner agreement. Force arises from inner conflict. Flow arises from inner acceptance. When the inner state agrees with the desired outcome, action feels natural. You do not manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. Desire points to possibility, but being determines experience. Become the one who already expects fulfillment, and desire fulfills itself. The silent thought blocking you may show up as impatience. Impatience reveals doubt. It says, "I don't trust this will happen unless I push." Trust is not passive, it is confident allowance. Allowance does not mean inaction. It means acting without inner resistance. It means moving from certainty rather than fear. When you trust your assumption, you do not rush it. You let it unfold. Your inner world is always communicating with the outer world. It speaks through feeling, expectation, and identity. When you listen carefully, you can hear what you have been telling life. If life feels closed, ask what assumption is being held. If life feels heavy, ask what identity is being carried. Answers arise not through analysis, but through honest observation. You do not need to control every thought. You need to control the ones you agree with. Agreement is the creative act. A thought passes through everyone's mind. Belief is what gives it power. When a limiting thought appears, you can let it pass like a cloud. But when you identify with it, you give it substance. Non-identification is freedom. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness choosing which ones to inhabit. The moment you recognize this, the silent thought loses its authority. Awareness itself is neutral. It reflects whatever it entertains. Entertain a higher assumption, and awareness reflects a higher world. You may not see immediate evidence, but evidence is not the cause, it is the effect. Stay faithful to the inner change, and the outer change must follow. Faith is not belief without proof. It is belief before proof. Proof comes later as confirmation. The order never changes. The silent thought blocking your life dissolves not through struggle, but through replacement. You gently, persistently assume something better. Over time, the old thought fades from lack of attention, and in its place, a new normal emerges. A normal where things work out. A normal where you feel supported. A normal where life moves forward without resistance. This is not fantasy. It is the natural outcome of directed consciousness. What you consistently accept as true becomes your lived experience. As you continue, you may notice that problems lose their emotional charge. They appear, but they no longer define you. They pass without leaving a mark. This is the sign that the silent thought has lost its grip. When life no longer feels like a barrier, but like a response, you know the inner shift has taken place. From that state, movement is effortless, direction is clear, and what once felt blocked begins to unfold in ways that feel surprisingly natural. The moment you truly grasp this, everything changes. You stop searching for the obstacle outside and finally see the only place where power has ever lived, within your own acceptance. The silent thought that once ruled you was never stronger than you. It was only believed. And what is believed can be unbelieved. Life has not been resisting you, it has been agreeing with you. From this moment on, let it agree with something greater. Decide now who you are willing to be inwardly, because that decision is the beginning of every visible change. Do not wait for proof, permission, or perfect conditions. Assume the truth you wish to live, feel it as real, and remain loyal to it. The world must follow. When the inner voice changes, destiny changes. And when you finally withdraw belief from the thought that blocked your life, you discover it was never blocked at all. It was only waiting for you to claim it.